Hello, everyone, and welcome to the weekly World of Darkness news show. Today, we're going to focus on one thing in particular, and that is the future coming release of Vampire the Masquerade Out for Blood, the second game from Choice of, or actually, interactive novel from Choice of Games studio. The first one was Vampire the Masquerade Nitro, written by Kyle Marquise, which got a lot of fans all across the family. People really enjoyed that game, and I really hope that you're going to enjoy Out for Blood just as much. We're going to interview Jim Dattilo, who is the author behind Out for Blood, and also a person who played and playtested Nitro, so he knows a lot about the previous game as well. And I wonder how this game is going to be different. And we know already a lot from it from the description on the Steam, and we know that it's dealing with Vampire World from a little bit of a different perspective, because from the perspective of hunters, or amateur hunters, let's say, not the actual professional hunters, but the very underdog kind of a situation in the town that is inhabited by vampires. But in what way and what are the little details in that story, I'm going to try to get that info from Jim today. So without further ado, let me just very quickly check whether Jim is awaiting me on the call and jump straight there. Well, hello! We can see you right now on the stream, and I do believe you have a good connection. So, could you very quickly, from the very start, introduce yourself to our community?
Sure, I am Jim Dattilo, one of the writers for Choice of Games, and here to talk about Vampire the Masquerade Out for Blood.
So we know of already from the Steam description of your game and from the general promotional materials that we've got a while ago as the community, what Out for Blood is going to be about. But in your words, how would you sum up this whole story?
So I'm sure many of the people who are watching have played Night Road, and obviously that's from the viewpoint of or the perspective of being a vampire. And this one kind of flips it to the other side. So in this, you're playing actually someone who finds out that vampires exist and they are taking residence in your in a town that you kind of grew up in,
Mm-hmm.
and now you're back after a long time. And so really it's discovering that vampires exist and then finding out how you're going to either save your town or figure out how to deal with what you consider a threat to the town and to many of your friends.
And you're starting from this very much of an underdog perspective, right? You do not really have any supernatural abilities to deal with this threat. So, what kind of a chance do you stand in front of this, kindred in your city?
Well, I mean, you do have a a better chance than you would think.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, it's kind of like having a coterie, of vampires with you. Well, the human side of it or the mortal side of it, you really need to kind of build up your allies, and that's kind of where this game draws um, your chances against the supernatural. So you have to spend some of your time trying to convince others that vampires do exist and they are a threat, and how can we stop them. There are also, as somebody who's played as a hunter before,
Mm-hmm.
in my own campaigns, I do like the idea of, going after vampires solo. Not always the smartest decision, but kind of a fun chance to, go after them and, gather weapons and learn different tactics that might work against them. So I also tried to put that in there. So there are opportunities for you to kind of try your hand at going after them solo.
I see. So going back to, because you mentioned playing as a hunter before, but how did your whole history of World of Darkness started, and what was your way into it?
So I actually grew up in Philadelphia, and that's kind of got a strong tabletop and RPG, fan base there.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were a lot of stores that started carrying Vampire the Masquerade products, and I think I actually even, picked up the first edition in the '90s and started convincing my friends that, this is something that is amazing. You can be a vampire, and it's not just like movies we saw. I mean, you could be different clans. You can
Mm-hmm.
have different disciplines. It was kind of just amazing. We were all kind of like nerdy D&D players, but this kind of made us feel like we were, cool for, as a kind of like a change. We really got into it, and so I don't think we really ever took many breaks, even when the pandemic hit. We just started playing on Roll20 and Discord,
That's
which
great.
yeah, and that kind of exploded too. Like I've never seen so many games now available online as before the pandemic. So
So you observed, Vampire the Masquerade through for the ages, actually, coming to the fifth edition. And what did you personally liked about fifth edition that you wanted to incorporate in Out for Blood as the game?
well, I definitely was intrigued by how much more coordinated mortals were becoming.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited to see the Second Inquisition source book that's coming out. Um, I think that, you know, it always used to be, mortals were like, you know, almost like a livestock
Mm-hmm.
to, the vampires. And now with the Second Inquisition, really it kind of changed things around to where mortals are just as feared as anything else. And they're coordinated and they're learning how to find vampires and learning how to work against them, in many ways, financially and telecommunications, being able to like pick up, anything over cell phones or, sending drones to attack. It's really changed things. Um, and so with, V5, I was really much more interested in, even though this is set in a small town, I wanted to kind of give the same feel of, you could use technology,
Mm-hmm.
you could, do surveillance, you could, um, kind of use some of the disadvantages of a vampire against them.
Definitely. And I remember that in the description for Out for Blood, you do also mention the existence of true faith in the game, that it is an aspect. So for me, as a role player and who played vampires in V5, true faith is extremely terrifying and intimidating. So how did you approach that from a narrative perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you say true faith in a game, everyone kind of gets a little tenser around the
Mm,
table. So I definitely wanted to bring in things like the occult, um, not so much things like hedge magic, which I know are in earlier editions, but definitely true faith because I think that's one of the, kind of calling cards of, some hunters. Uh, Now, when we started writing it, I realized that it's also much more, it's much more difficult to implement in a text-based game
mm-hmm.
than I kind of thought at the beginning. So even though right now you can play with faith, we're actually going to expand that with a like a free download later, where we really expand kind of how it plays out in the game. Just because it touches so many things, we want to make sure that it really uses all types of religions and not just, Christianity, which is kind of, the way it was written in earlier editions.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And now, when it comes to people who played Nitrod beforehand, let's start with the basics. How long exactly is Out for Blood? What's the word count?
Yeah, I think I'm up to 450,000 words.
Wow.
Um, I think Night Road's longer, um, but yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us we just keep writing and writing and writing, and we'll keep adding as long as we're allowed.
Of course. So, as you played Night Road and played this as Night Road before, how do you think Ashford compares to it from the story perspective? Do you have any common links?
There actually are a few Easter eggs in
Oh.
the games, but for the most part, I mean, it's a totally different perspective. You know, Night Road, you're a courier, you're on the road, you're doing these jobs for the prince. Um, you know, in Out for Blood, you're a mortal who's never heard of a prince, never heard of, a primogen, don't know anything about really any of the structure of the Camarilla or, don't know what an anarch is. So really, it's um, the only things that I could say we shared, other than kind of the the mood of the game and the darkness of the world, we did share some of the attributes, skills, um, like character creation.
Hmm.
I talked to Kyle while he was still writing it, and we did share some code to make things easier and to make when you jump from Night Road to Out for Blood, we didn't want it to be a jarring transition. You're not trying to like relearn something. We just want you to kind of dive in and enjoy the story.
And I did so that there's also a Storytellers mode included. So it's very similar to get into and play as Night Road, right?
Yep, exactly. So the storyteller mode, I do think it's a little bit easier if you play because you can see what attributes and skills are paired to give yourself the best chance of success. I like to play with it on and then another playthrough off because
Hmm.
it really does change the game. But I know I was excited to see it in Night Road, and I definitely wanted to do the same for Out for Blood.
And speaking, of course, of other games, you've mentioned to me that you also played some other recent Vampire the Masquerade titles. Any of your favorites?
Well, I definitely enjoyed Coteries of New York and Shadows of New York. Um, I thought in terms of being, visual novels, um, they really presented the world very well.
Hmm.
And I felt pretty immersed, which I think can be hard for visual novels. Um, I feel more immersed in text-based games, but also when you don't have to worry about graphics, you can really tailor the experience to make it feel very immersive. But I thought those two games really did a great job. Um, I used to play a lot of FPS games, so
Hmm.
I'm really interested in Blood Hunt.
Ah,
Um, I don't know if I'm as good a player as some of the streamers I've seen who've tried it, but it's definitely a very cool concept.
I can't wait to play with you in the game. As much as I did feel like I would be a good player, the streamers also kind of intimidated me with their talents. So
Yep,
we just gotta be Nosferatu and just hide on the streets, and that's fine.
that's
Uh,
right.
so you did gain the experience to make Out for Blood with your other game, which some of our community members mention with a lot of love, because they also played your previous zombie game. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so Zombie Exodus is the game I actually started writing for kind of the sister company hosted games
Mm-hmm.
when I, was just trying this as a hobby. And that was, I guess, over 10 years ago. I started that and just kept at it, adding content, um, and then finally moved on to kind of the companion game, which
Mm-hmm.
is called Safe Haven. Um, that release that's coming up probably this fall will make the game over 1.5 million words in
Wow.
total. So, I mean, as you can see, like, people like me and Kyle, we just, we can write, and um, unfortunately, the more ideas we get, we don't say no to them. We sort of just say, that's a great idea. I'd love to see a character be able to do that. I'm going to go write 100,000 words and make it happen. So,
I was
Um,
surprised with how much Night Road was expanded after the release and how many things were added. Do you also plan to incorporate any of the player feedback or anything add anything new to Out for Blood after the release and everything that you have planned for it right now?
yes, definitely. So when you're developing a game like this, you'll probably have a few dozen beta testers and people, who've looked at the game. Um, but once you release it to the public, it's kind of like just this explosion of feedback comes in, and you start getting more and more ideas. People are pointing out maybe little inconsistencies. And so we always kind of plan that, at least for the first few weeks, just to gather all that feedback and try to figure out how we can make the game better. I already have a pretty long to-do list of things I'd like to add. Um, maybe some side missions that take you outside of the town where
Mm-hmm.
you're currently trying to save. Um, I'd also like to bring in more characters from Chicago by Night.
I see.
There is at least one character who's in Out for Blood who comes from Chicago, and that's something that not everyone is going to see in it on every playthrough. So that's something that would probably be interesting to find. Um, but since it occurs right outside of Chicago, I thought about maybe having the character go check out some of the other areas and seeing some of the iconic landmarks that are in the source book. So that's something I'd like to do. And then also, as we talked about, expanding True Faith.
Interesting. So when it comes to Jericho Heights, which is the setting of the game, can you tell us a little bit more about the setting, about this town? Is it a little town?
Yeah, it's under 20,000 people,
Mm-hmm.
which, you know, based on what I've read, that can support maybe one or two vampires. Um, but you find out that there are quite a few more vampires in town than
Mm-hmm.
just one or two. Um, so you grew up, or you basically spent the summers of your childhood in Jericho Heights. So you made some friends along the way, going to visit your grandfather who lived there. But then you would return to Chicago to go to school and to, as part of your normal life. Well, after your grandfather passes away, he leaves you his store and his house, and it kind of draws you back there. And that's when you soon start to find out that there are things going on in town that you did not, you could have never predicted are happening. And you start to find out that other people know about it as well.
Hmm.
And that's kind of where things pick up. But being a small town, there aren't as many resources, um, and so you really need to kind of discover other people in town that could help, and then ways that you can actually, get weapons or get, um, you know, things that might be able to help give you an advantage against, these enemies that are just, have amazing powers and an unlimited ability to battle you.
Nice. And mystery, horror, and similar themes to Vampire the Masquerade very often go very much hand in hand with small towns and with settings like these. Are there any particular pop cultural, either movies or books that inspired you when you were writing Out for Blood?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been interested in kind of these small town settings. Um, like I remember reading Salem's Lot by Stephen King,
Mm-hmm.
movies like Fright Night, where, you kind of discover, this, quote unquote evil that's lurking in the shadows of this city or a town. Um, and, what do you do about it? Do you kind of sit back and let it happen? Do you, move away, or do you, make a stand? And so I've always liked those kind of underdog stories. And I thought, really there's no better underdog story than kind of a vampire hunter, especially one who just realizes that this whole world exists that they never knew about.
Great, yeah, I can only imagine that there is a lot of dread to the story. Already playing a vampire is filled with a lot of fear about what's going to happen the other night or the other day, but being a hunter, a mortal in the city that has vampires in it might be very exciting. So, as we speak of our hunter, how far can we go when it comes to customizing our character in the game, in the story, to play as any personality or any kind of a character we would like to?
Yeah, so there are, um, a variety of just personal characteristics that you can choose. You actually can pick kind of like a profession,
Mm-hmm.
but it's kind of a light profession, something that just helps build your attributes and skills. And if you'd like to dabble in science or the occult or true faith, um, I actually gave kind of a few different options for players where they can do it more of like a story mode, and you can talk your way through or choose choices that kind of immerse you in your character, or you can just go with the kind of like a standard character builder
Mm-hmm.
where I lay out the skills and the attributes, and you get to assign your points. So it's more like an interactive V5 character sheet from the standpoint of a mortal. So,
Okay, and now a little bit more, I guess, tricky question maybe, but as a person, let's just imagine. I, as a person, love vampires, and I approach this game, even though I know I'm going to play from a hunter perspective, as someone that is super much into vampires. Are there any ways for me to collaborate with them in the game, or to actually work in their favor?
yeah, so kind of deeper into the game, when you kind of start to really understand what's going on in the city, um, there are really two factions that are going against one another, and you can decide that you would like to ally with one or the
Mm-hmm.
other and work against the other. Um, you can decide that you're going to work against both of them, or you're going to just kind of let them fight it out and figure out what to do later. So you have kind of the classic, very powerful single vampire that kind of has been running things for a long time, and
Mm-hmm.
then you kind of have the upstart thin bloods that are coming to take over. So you really get to choose whose side you want to be on, or just decide, you know what, I'm really a hunter. I'm going to take them all out.
So when it comes to branching, of course, it seems like there's going to be a plenty of ways to finish the game. But how did you approach branching in your writing, and how many endings did you plan out for Out for Blood?
So there are 12 major endings,
Mm-hmm.
meaning that there are, um, based on the choices that you've made and the stats that you've accumulated, there's really 12 major paths that your character will go through. But within those, there are things like romance, and there are other storylines like, can you financially support yourself? And how is your store functioning? Is it thriving, or have you really paid no attention to it? And basically, it's on the brink of bankruptcy. Um, there are other personal um, like storylines that are going on. So within those 12 major endings, there are lots of minor endings, probably dozens of minor endings that will also affect how things end. And really, all during the game, I track pretty much everything you do and try to come up with a logical approach to how should your character look at the end of the game. What would be the most satisfying and also, quote unquote, realistic end to your character? Um, And so it's difficult, and that's where a lot of the playtesting comes in, because you want to make sure you're getting it right. You don't want to have somebody play, 400,000 words of a game, they get to the end, and the ending doesn't reflect how they've actually played. So it's really tricky, but um, you know, this is what we do, and we hope people enjoy the product that we made.
Wonderful. So, when people are able to play your game in 2 weeks, or if they're able to play the demo earlier, about which I'm going to also talk, where would you prefer them to go to submit their feedback or opinions or any maybe bug reports?
I mean, I am on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, I accept emails from people directly. Um, I'm really not hard to find, and I feel like whatever way readers are, feel more comfortable giving feedback, I'm willing to accept it, because I'm just happy that people talk about the game. So, anything that they have, I'll probably respond, even if it's something that isn't realistic for the game. I think even that level of feedback helps me to say, well, yeah, I can't add a Malkavian in the game at this point, but you know what? Maybe there is an opportunity for another path where you come across a character that they're describing.
Interesting. Okay, so people can bother you on Twitter, Jim Dattilo, and on your Facebook and on any other accounts to send you their feedback. And yeah, anything else that you would like to tell our community before they are able to play your game?
Um, no, just I'll say thank you to you for letting me come on the show. I actually am usually in the audience, lurking
Oh, that's so
for
nice
most
of
of
you.
them.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and just really excited to kind of be a part of the community, and excited to see where V5 takes us.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jim. I cannot wait for your game. Cannot wait to play it. And yeah, tell you about my favorite route after I will complete it, hopefully more than 3 times. That's my plan right now.
Great.
thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye
Thank
bye.
you. So, hello everyone, again back after the interview with Jim. I think that was amazing. Like, I had a tons of good time interviewing both Kyle Marquis and Jim Dattilo about their Chase of Games titles. Night Road beforehand, and now Out for Blood, which is coming in just 2 weeks from now on. But I also have a little surprise for you, because just right now you can already play the demo of the game, and you can check it out straight away. I'm going to grab the link and send it on chat in just a little bit for people who are watching us live, and if you're watching us on YouTube, it's going to be linked down below. So the demo is available for you to play it. And now when it comes to the next World of Darkness news, we're going to be on a little bit of a hiatus, as I am taking vacations, so I will be out for 3 next Thursdays, which means 3 episodes off, 3 weeks off from World of Darkness news, and I will be back in August. So I hope to see you then. We already have some very cool guests planned and very cool stuff planned for August, so I hope to bring you more news in here. And in the meantime, when I will be out, all of the updates are going to happen on Discord and Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and regular social media, while we're not going to be that much on Twitch and YouTube. So if you are looking for any news, go to our social media, and I will be there. If you're staying with us on chat right now, if you're watching us live, stay for the links and the question part after the official news part. If you're watching us on YouTube, thank you so much for watching this week, and see you after vacations. Don't get lost in the night.